So in life, generally speaking, we view conflict as negative, right? It's something to be avoided. But my next guest says in marriage, conflict can bring you closer. Marriage coach Crystal Hansen wants you to stop avoiding conflict and start communicating around it. It's great to meet you. Great to have you, Crystal.
Thanks for having me.
So this idea of leaning into conflict, I'm sure the catch is the communication piece, but it feels a little counterintuitive sometimes.
It does, and I think a lot of the counterintuitive part of it is a little bit of social and cultural disconnect a little bit, or some conditioning there. We're always taught to be kind to everybody, don't rock the boat.
Be pleasant.
Keep the peace,
right? Yeah.
And that's great, except for it's not really honest. And so if we're not being honest with each other, then it leaves the other person to kind of fill in the blanks and try to guess and see what they're actually thinking. And let's face it, when we do that, they're always going to get it wrong, right?
Yes, our imaginations spin. We tell ourselves certain stories.
Exactly. So by showing up and being honest, that leads to a more deeper connection. It's a little bit more vulnerable and hard, but being able to be willing to actually have an honest conversation is what is going to actually drive you closer together, because you can grow.
I love that you put honesty at the root of this, because that's a value we all want to subscribe to live a little more purely, right, and a little more often. And speaking of that vulnerability, you put yourself in that space and say that you had to learn strong communication skills with your husband after some unexpected, even difficult first years of marriage.
Yes, we did.
I think that's every relationship, first of all.
Every relationship.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got married, and about 10 months later, he was activated to serve a 16-month tour in Iraq.
Oh, wow.
And so that kind of flew us through a loop a little bit.
Yes.
So he left about a month after our year anniversary, and about 9 months into that, we found out he had cancer.
Oh, my goodness.
So I flew to DC and met him at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and we were there for about 2.5, almost 3 months, where where he underwent just a really intense surgery that we didn't know if it was going to work or not. It was pretty aggressive treatment, but it was our only option.
So you were forced into this place of strong communication, right? Clear expectation during some really stressful outside scenarios.
Yes. And he had a trach, so he couldn't talk.
Oh my goodness. Welcome to marriage. That's harder than the average relationship. I withdraw my comment. That's a lot. But you learned a lot, you say, through that. And now as a professional marriage coach, let's go through a few things that you would say would help maybe the average couple, or even the not so average couple facing heavy things like you described, be more communicative, right? Be more open in our communication. The first thing you say is to start with yourself.
Yes. It's really important, because conflict is actually something that we feel inside of ourselves, right? That's kind of our little notification that something's not right.
It's like the red flag.
Yes, exactly. And so if we're starting with ourselves as opposed to reading the other person and trying to guess and trying to focus all on them, and we actually bring it on the inside, that's when we really get honest with ourselves and decide, like, hey, is this something that I really care about? Do I like my reasons why I'm upset about this, or why I'm concerned about this? And then coming from that space, you can go and actually talk to your partner about it. Because sometimes when you run it down and you kind of realize where you're going with it, it's like, oh, I don't know if I really care too much to even have a conversation about it.
Is it worth this battle, so to speak?
Exactly.
But we talk about those moments, those scenarios where conflict does arise. You believe space is a good thing. Space is your friend.
Absolutely.
Describe space. What is that? What do you mean by that?
You know, for everybody, it's a little bit different. I'm sure most people can, resonate with this, because most of the time couples aren't the same. You have one partner that typically wants to hash it out right then and there, and they really just want to have it done and over with, and then you have the other one that's like, I just don't want to talk about it right now.
Isn't that funny? And somehow those two people marry each other. It's how it usually works.
Right, exactly. And so what we want to avoid is, of course, having that emotionally charged conversation where there's a lot of heavy emotions or intense emotions going on, because we don't show up as our best selves when we're coming from that place.
So take the time or regroup yourself in a way that allows you to show up how you want to show up.
Exactly. Except for also, I'm going to give a caveat to that.
Okay.
On that end, we don't want to sweep it under the rug and just ignore it.
It'd be easy to let weeks go by before I'm really in the place, and then by then we've forgotten about it and it's over and done. So what's a good time frame? Do you have a recommendation on a healthy time frame to address these kind of conflicting emotional issues?
That's kind of, I love this question, just because there really isn't a right or a wrong answer to this. It really is like I said, looking within yourself and just deciding that way what is a good time for you when you can go into that conversation. I love how Brene Brown puts this, where she talks about how you should have a conversation but like sitting on the same side of the table as opposed to opposite sides.
Oh, I haven't heard that. Yes,
and I love that because it really is kind of this invitation. When you're in a position where you can give your partner an invitation and say, hey, I have something that I really want to talk to you about. When's a good time for you? And it's more like an invitation as opposed to, I'm going to call you down to the principal's office and tell you what's wrong.
And give you the 1, 2. I'm going to
give you the list.
Let me solve this problem for us, right?
Yes.
So make it a good time. That's what you mean. A good time to talk for both of you when emotions are in a healthy place. And that sit on the same side of the table is an interesting piece of advice too, because physically that puts you in a place of partnership.
Exactly. It's collaborative. It's more welcoming. You feel like you're on the same team. You're two people coming together with the same goal.
I love that. As you see couples that you coach, and even from your personal experiences, as you see these pieces of advice put into practice, what's the benefit? What's the outcome? Is it less conflict? Or is it conflict that's resolved quicker and sooner? Is it an overall connection? What do you see as the payoff to practicing these skills?
I think the biggest payoff is not having a lot of resentment. Whenever we avoid conflict or we avoid telling each other the truth, it's building this resentment inside of ourselves.
Yes, good answer.
Kind of like a war. And so for sure, just starting to recognize and being willing to try and have a more honest conversation.
Yeah.
You're going to get to know yourself better, and your spouse is going to get to know you better. And then, like I said, you can kind of come together. It's never going to be perfect. I wish I had a magic wand and I could say, this is what you do, how many times, and you'll have a perfect marriage. But that's not how it works.
It's about the work, it's about the individual,
Exactly.
It's about the couple and the unique personalities at play.
Yeah.
You described it super well and gave us great skills, I think, to kind of self-identify, to reflect on, and to ultimately practice. So thank you so much. Where can we get more of your advice?
So I have a website, crystalhansencoaching.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, we'll meet you there. Nice to meet you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.